Yoru is Valorant's latest agent addition to their lineup, and he definitely has one of the most interesting and most skill-based kits that the game has to offer. However, as cool and unique he may seem, there's been one issue that has plagued the agent. He's pretty useless. Sitting at pretty much the lowest win rate in the game ever since release, players have just been struggling to make Yoru really work in competitive play. In today's video, we'll be breaking down a couple of reasons why Yoru has failed to truly break into the metagame so far, and some things that Riot could do in order to improve it. Before I get into things, just a quick reminder that if you enjoyed the video to get subscribed. It's free and you can always unsub again if you'd like to. Only 4% of you guys are actually subs, so getting that number out will help me out. So Yoru's probably the hardest duelist in the game to execute and actually make plays on because of his abilities actually having very little impact by themselves. The effectiveness of his kit will directly be impacted by both the ability and communication of both the Yoru player and his teammates in order to coordinate better. Classic examples of this will be getting footstep setups or using the sound of the footsteps in order to bait out enemy rotations so that your team can get more leverage in taking another site. These are the kinds of plays that require incredible amounts of coordination between the Yoru player and the rest of the team. The kind of coordination that won't be present in an environment like solo queue. If you look at most of Yoru's abilities, they provide either very little impact to the team or can even affect his teammates negatively in the form of his flash. If you compare it to agents like Sage or Phoenix, you can tell there's a clear difference in their applications. Every one of Sage's abilities carries the potential for a huge impact in the game, and there's good reason for her popularity in Valorant right now. The same can apply for Phoenix as well. There's a very clear and effective use case for each of his abilities, and because of this, he's able to thrive in solo queue because he has a kit that's relatively clear cut and easy to execute on. Yoru doesn't have that same luxury as either of these agents, even though he's still a little bit different. So much of his kit relies on the Yoru being the better player, and therefore the agent itself is really only effective if you as the player are objectively better as well. Not only that, Yoru has one of the harshest, if not the harshest, mastery curve of any agent in the game right now, just because of how unintuitive his abilities are to use in general. Having a slow teleport and a single command footstep are not going to be what wins you rounds or games by default, so the Yoru player will need both a good grasp of the game itself and also of the agent's limits in order to truly be effective. I will give credit where credit is due though, because Yoru's flash is actually pretty strong, and using it in combination with his other abilities provides him with a lot of leverage in using them, but by no means does it compensate for the absolute lack of impact that the rest of his kit has. There's potential for that. Players and teams haven't found the absolute limit to what he can do, but even with that in mind, I don't think the agent's going to be completely meta-changing or anything like that. Even Yoru's ultimate is really weird. Although an extraordinarily cool ability on the surface, when it comes to applying dimensional drift in games, it's hard to find a good use for it just because of its innate weaknesses. When Yoru steps out of dimensional drift, it's extremely loud and he has a huge cooldown before he can actually do anything again. It's honestly quite inconvenient, and it makes it feel like most of the time you use it will have to be extremely careful in order to not kill yourself. There's still some outplay potential with it, and it's great for getting information on a site, but it honestly just feels like an inferior version of Phoenix's Run It Back, since Phoenix can pretty much actually clear the site worry-free, whereas Yoru can only use it for vision or as a distraction. It's quite the awkward ability to use. In order to push Yoru to viability, I think Riot's going to have to think about his kit and what they can change in order to improve his quality of life. We can understand that having a kit with a ton of mobility and deception has the potential for huge outplay potential, but it's extremely difficult for an agent like Yoru to feel that good when there's so much clunk to his kit. There has to be some element of this, of course, in order to balance the agent, but Yoru doesn't feel good when he uses his abilities. It's quite unfortunate considering how cool his concept is. I think something that should be done for sure is to clean up his abilities so that they have lower cooldowns when they're being used, or if there's some way to use them that makes them feel more satisfying without having to make them beyond broken. Like, I just think it really takes way too long for Yoru to be able to shoot or do anything after using his ultimate and E. It's for sure to keep him in check with the other agents, but I think the agent would be way more fun and satisfying by reducing this cooldown, even if it means exchanging it for another drawback. You can see examples of agents like Raze and Jet who are able to get away with this no problem. You could reduce the effective range of his teleports or introduce some other drawback, but I think feeling nimble and flexible around the map is the main thing that will separate Yoru from the rest, and that's super important for his character design. I'm sure Riot has something planned to save him though, since they did a great job bringing Viper back into the metagame, so I trust that they'll be able to deliver. That's it from me though. Stay fresh, brothers.